Do you mind just telling me a bit about your journey in terms of going from MBP to where you are now?
Yeah, so I started out after I graduated from my PhD. I did an NSERC-funded industry fellowship with a small biotech company. At the time it was called Loris Therapeutics, and did drug development. So early stage small molecule inhibitor for kinases, which is exactly what I did in my PhD, was around kinase inhibitors and so on. So did that about a year, but then sort of wanted to get away from the bench. So then I did a fellowship with the Ontario Brain Institute. At the time it was called the Management Fellowship, where they train you around business skills and research management. I was with them for 6 months, and then that was followed by a placement in one of their partners called Indoc Research. It's a non-for-profit health and research informatics company. And since then I've been there and sort of just grew into that position, or into the position that I'm in now.
Tell me a bit more about that transition from academia into this more informatics company.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to realize, and one of the panelists mentioned that, is just not being afraid to try new things. So my background was cell signaling and molecular biology, and when I started doing my postdoc, again, it was a lot of molecular biology, but I wanted to try something new, and when I got to the Ontario Brain Institute, it was a lot of data standardization, it was data management, and looking at the power that data brings to science, research, and health. And it was just a transition where it was a choice that you make. You decide to learn more, and in order to adapt, and in order to become proficient at what you're doing. And sort of that journey was just finding things that you found interesting that related to your background. I was a molecular biologist, so I was really interested in the molecular data that they were collecting, and that helped me sort of bridge that gap where now I could think about data both in terms of molecular data and what data they were collecting, but then expand that to clinical data and imaging data and sort of apply the same knowledge to these different areas.
What would be maybe one of your favorite aspects of this new position that you have?
I think it's the learning opportunities. I think a good career to me is something that challenges you every day and forces you to learn. And I think a lot of us, pursue graduate degrees because we're curious and we love to learn. So part of my job is exactly that. I see new types of data, I see new technologies every day, and I'm trying to understand that and then figuring out how does that fit in with the bigger picture of what my company is trying to do. That's the funnest part. It's no 2 days are the same.
And what would you say is one of the biggest things that you've had to learn going from academia into this position?
I think one of the biggest things to learn, it's a more of a soft skill kind of thing, is that you realize that when you start working with a team that's really diverse and people are really good at certain things, you can't be the expert.
Right.
And I think, moving from academia and doing a PhD, you are the expert in your project. You know everything in that world, but when you're working in a multidisciplinary team, there are tons of people that have experiences you could never actually gain, no matter how much, if you work a lot, you can get it, but at that point, the efficiency comes you lending your expertise and complementing theirs. So letting go of necessarily becoming an expert in everything, but being an expert in a niche, and then finding the right team to complement your own knowledge and expertise.
Do you have any advice for today's graduate students that you might want to give?
Yeah, I think don't be afraid of change and risking a different experience just because it doesn't fit into sort of what you thought your career path was going to be. Especially early on when you're graduating, you may have opportunities for 6 months here and a year here. And I think those, as precarious work isn't great, I think there's advantages to it. It allows you to try new things and see whether you like that environment. So I think my advice is be prepared to learn, be prepared for change, and just collect as much experience as you can in a wide variety of things.